Okay, hi everyone. Today's webcast is about how to beat most professional copywriters and the vital few copywriting techniques we use to achieve the greatest impact on profits. I'm Dr. Karl Blanks from Conversion Rate Experts, and co-presenting the call with me today will be Paris Chopra, who's the founder and CEO of Visual Website Optimizer. During the call, if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them. There is a questions panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. So if you ask any questions, we'll try to answer them on there. And any that we don't have time for, then we'll answer on our blogs. Right, so the three things we're going to go through. Firstly, Paris is going to talk through some case studies, three real-world A/B tests. Then I'll talk about the vital few most effective copywriting techniques that we've found have the greatest impact. And finally, I'll give a winning copywriting template for whatever you sell. So that's a very robust format for any kind of page to help you, that you can use to increase your sales in a proven way. So first, some of you may already be on Visual Website Optimizer's list, and that's how you got on here. But anyone who isn't, anyone who's come from if you're one of our subscribers, then Visual Website Optimizer was made our lives much easier. When Paris first launched it, most companies were using software that was quite difficult, quite arduous to set up tests. And Paris created Visual Website Optimizer and made our lives a lot easier. Also, because Paris bootstrapped his company, then not only is he privy to a lot of information about what people are testing, so he has a very good overview on what's working, but also he's bootstrapped his own company. He's built it up from scratch. So he has the advantage of, his own site, for example, is constantly being A/B tested, and you can see how his headlines change with time. And so he's in the same situation that you and we are in actually having grown a business and having depended upon this to grow a business. So I'm going to pass you over to Paris now to talk through three real-world A/B tests and what we can learn from them. So Paris.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for that excellent intro. Hello, everyone. Like Carl mentioned, I've been involved with A/B tests for a couple of years now. Running an A/B testing company gives a lot of privileges, and one of the privileges is to work with customers and thousands of customers and see what A/B tests they are running, recommend them for new A/B tests, and more importantly, learn from all the different A/B tests they have been running on different pages on their websites. From on our website, in last 3 years, we have collected many case studies, and going through all those case studies, I've picked 3 of the case studies that deal with copywriting. I hope you'll find these case studies very useful, and in the end, we'll also derive some generic lessons that can be applied on your own website. Next slide, Carl. So the first case study that we are going to talk about concerns with just a single word change. When you talk about copy, or when you discuss copy, generally you'll be discussing the whole page or the entire message that you want to communicate to the visitor. But it's interesting to note that how that even a single word can influence a lot in the visitor's psychology in terms of what he wants to understand from the page. So copy does not just mean the entire block of text, but actually what user wants to know from the page. In this case, as you will see in the next slide, the company tested 2 different versions. So the company in this case is called VM, and they have a product for which there is no standard pricing. To their partners and to their suppliers, they give custom discounts, so they cannot just publish pricing. So what they had originally was request quote. So you can see on the product page it's written request quote, and they tried changing it to request pricing. N- Now it is interesting to note that one of these versions led to 161% more click-throughs. Next slide, please. And that version was request pricing. So just by changing request a quote to request pricing, they were able to increase click-throughs by 161%. They did not reveal the impact on the bottom line because that is confidential information for them. But I'm sure if you have 161% more visitors going to your pricing page, going to your contact us page or request a quote page, you of course have much more business coming in. And the way they went about doing this test is that they used a tool called Qualaroo, and Karl will be talking about this tool again later in his talk. But this tool, what it does is that from the bottom right or anywhere else on the page, it just pops up asking a very open-ended question. And in this case, they asked their visitors what information would they like to see on the page, and many of them said pricing, and that was the motivation for them to change request a quote to request pricing, and that did wonders for them. Next slide. The second test I'm going to talk about is where one of our customers rewrote an entire paragraph. So the first test dealt with changing a single word, but here we are talking about changing was the most important paragraph on their page. Next slide, please. So in this case, the customer we are talking about is called Lincoln Plastics Machinery. So they sell used plastic equipment on the site. And as you might know, plastic is a very broad industry, and they have got lots and lots of products. On their inventory page, they list about 119 subcategories of plastic machinery. That's a lot of products to sell. They essentially wanted to simplify the page and hence increase number of leads and quotes. Next slide, Carl. Their original page looked like what you are able to see. As you can see, there's just too many links there. On top of these links, which are the subcategories of plastic equipment they sell, they had an opening paragraph, but that paragraph was more or less just there by default, and it was not very user friendly, as you can see. It was a lot of text, and it didn't talk to visitor particularly about what they were really interested in. Next slide, Carl. So they formed a hypothesis that they uh, uh, to see what they wanted to change, and they used a couple of interesting things to do the fixes. First, they went through their Google Analytics account and found out what are the most popular subcategories, and that gave them some food for thought, that these are the products or these are the categories which are most important, and these are the categories that they should be writing about in their copy. So that was one idea. The second idea was that they, in addition to looking at the most popular subcategories, they also poured through their search analytics data, and found out what their visitors were searching for. So a lot of times what happens is that if your page, which contains the copy, is not communicating well with your visitors will use the site search to just get to a page what they want to learn and understand. So site search data is one of the most valuable data points that you can use. Just go through your Google Analytics account, and if you haven't still connected your internal site search to your Google Analytics, you should totally do so, because that will let you see into your visitor's mind and understand what they really want to know instead of what you're trying to communicate. And the third was they actually monitored few sales calls. Better than anything else, hearing from customers what they want to know is the greatest data point you can get when it comes to fixing your pages. Next slide, please. So when they redid the copy, here is how the new copy looked like. As you can see, they included links to the 5 most popular subcategories, and they also added an open-ended question at the uh, end of the paragraph, which said, "Have any questions? Please call us at this number." And it was a short and sweet paragraph that just did the talking. Like you can see, the results was just phenomenal. They got 150% higher leads than the original page, which meant a direct increase of $15,000 of sales queries. And they estimated that this single change would result into additional $500,000 in their annual sale. For a simple change, this of course is a lot of money. And do note that this test is statistically significant. So on our blog and all the case studies we publish, we only talk about statistical significance changes. So more likely than not, these results are very real, and it's quite interesting to see graph change led to such results. Next slide, Carl. Uh, the third test talks about something a little different, where not just the copy itself, but the way copy is presented resulted into a 40% increase in sales. Next slide, please. So the customer in this case study is a company known as Underwater Audio. It's an e-commerce store where they sell waterproof headphones. This is the product page for on their website, and like you can see in the screenshot, they had a table where they would list all the different types of information about the product, and below the table they had a paragraph, a couple of paragraphs in fact, with lots of links. And they themselves believe this page is not the best page for their visitors. Next slide. Yeah, in words of customer itself, like I said, they felt this table was unattractive. And if you had noticed in the table, they were writing a product description. And when you are talking to the customer, your copy should not talk about description. It should actually have a conversation with the people on the page. So if you just mention features, warranty, depth in a table, as you would mention in a catalog, that is not good copy. And luckily they knew that. So what they did in the redesigned page was a couple of things. Next slide, Carl. So they did a couple of changes, and the paragraphs that you saw in the original page, they rolled those paragraphs into the table itself. And secondly, the on the table, the descriptions they had, such as features, warranty, they just rephrased those words into a more user-friendly category. For example, they would use best for instead of activity. And you'll see in the variation that all the new table rows were very user friendly, even though the entire information was presented in a table. And thirdly, instead of having multiple call to action in the sense of having multiple links in the paragraphs, they just had 2 buttons for each of the products. And lastly, they cleaned up the table layout, added lots more white space, and the result was 40% more leads. Next slide, Carl. Notice how much cleaner this table is, and it says best for earbud fit, outstanding features, cord length. All these talks to the customer directly instead of just letting them figure out what it is from the product description. And uh, next slide, please. From these 3 case studies, we are able to derive several lessons. And one of the most important lessons that we can derive is to actually how to know what to fix when it comes to copy. And like I was talking before, there are several different ways you can get peek into visitors' mind and First, you can use your Google Analytics data to derive insights. One of the best ways to find out which pages to fix first is to use your Google Analytics data and simply bring up which are the most trafficked pages on your website. It may sometimes happen that you have limited resources and you have a couple of different types of pages you need to fix. Maybe home page, product page, frequently asked questions, or a couple of other pages. If you want to pick one page, just see which is the most traffic page and start fixing that. And secondly, you can use search, both internal and external, to see what people are looking for. Uh, it's an excellent resource, and I cannot recommend it highly enough of how important it is to go through the search data to find out what people really want to know from your website. And third, you can do surveys and ask open-ended questions to your visitors. For example, you can just ask, what's wrong with my page? Or you can ask, what are the biggest objections to purchasing a product on this website? Or even things like what we can do to improve our website. Open-ended questions always give great insights. Next slide, please. And the second obvious lesson is that looks matter. When we talk about copy, we are not just talking about text or the message, but we're actually talking about the way text is presented. If you have a copy and it is not presented well, say it does not have it does not have very clean layouts, or it does not have good fonts, or your page is not good looking, no amount of good copy can save a page that is not clear enough for the visitor, or that does not give a look of a trustworthy site. And lastly, you can, if you have lots of copy on your website, you can try out arranging some of those copy in tables or bullet points that lets your visitors scan the information instead of reading paragraphs of text. And the third lesson, which is very obvious, but not a lot of people do, and like Karl will be talking later, most professional copywriters don't. We should A/B test everything. Next slide, Karl. So all the guidelines and best practices that I've been talking about, or Karl will be talking next, you should absolutely make sure that you verify those guidelines or best practices before implementing on their website, because an online business has tens and hundreds of variables, and the context changes from a business to business. So it is very risky just to change the copy without split testing it. Who knows, might be the old boring ways work better for you, and the new and interesting ways. So it's better to be safe and A/B test your ideas. Next slide, please. And of course, this is a small plug. A great way to A/B test is to actually use Visual Website Optimizer. We like to call our tool as the world's easiest A/B testing tool. And if someone is not from our list on this webinar, I'd like to emphasize that Visual Website Optimizer does not require any technical knowledge for creating and publishing A/B and multivariate tests. In fact, the 3 previous tests that you saw, they were all created on our platform, and none of them required any technical knowledge. Even the product manager, business owners, or marketing managers can create such A/B test within 10 minutes and start collecting data on it. And the integration is as easy as copy pasting one code snippet on the website. If you ever installed Google Analytics, which is just a code drop on your website, using our tool is as simple as that. And of course, if when you go through the website, you will realize that Visual Website Optimizer is much more than just a. We've got interesting features like heat maps that tell you where people are clicking. And as I've been mentioning the importance of user feedback, we also have a user feedback module where you can get feedback from your visitor, from real world people asking what to fix on the website, what they like or what they don't like. It's very valuable input into your next A/B test. Next slide, please. And one of the easy ways to get started with A/B testing through Visual Website Optimizer is to just sign up for a free 30-day trial. So it's a no obligation, no credit card trial need. You can just go to visualwebsiteoptimizer.com and sign up for the free trial. The pricing starts for free, but our most popular plan for serious testers is as affordable as $249 per month. It gives you 100,000 visitors, and it's our most popular plan, even though the cheapest one starts at $49. And if you want, we have a free 30 minutes free personalized demo plus initial consulting. Just email sales@thingified.com. With this, my part is over. For people who are not on the conversion rate expert list, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Karl Blanks. I've been working with him for a long time now, in fact, a couple of years. And yeah, their company, Conversion Rate Experts, is one of the most renowned consultants in the entire world. And they're also one of our certified partners. And I've been very proud to work with him personally. And if you want any A/B testing advice, he's the go-to person I always recommend to. Karl, over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Paris. Oh, I've just clicked on that link. Oh no, I shouldn't have done that, should I? Hang on, I'm back. Firstly, I'm going to tell you before the story of how of our background is into testing. My colleague, my co-founder, Ben Jessen, and I, we used to work in-house for a company that sold cell phones to international travelers. And by 2005, this was the graph that they had on the wall for the staff compensation for the end of year bonuses. And by the end of 2005, it was a travel business, by the way. So which is why 2004 peaks in the summer and then drops again in the winter. And by the end of 2005, we didn't know what else we could do to grow the business. We were number one in the search engine rankings for all of the industry's main keywords, and we'd had loads of PR. We'd been in almost every travel magazine, and it was at the end of 2005 that we discovered that split testing, and in particular multivariate testing, could be carried out on websites. And because of my scientific background, it immediately seemed like an obviously good thing to do, because obviously when you're running large scale industrial processes, then split testing is just the way that processes are improved. That's how manufacturing works. And so we started doing it to our site. We tripled the company's revenues to about $9 million in the following 12 months. And then actually after this, by 2007, we doubled it again. And so we just realized that this works, that it's amazingly powerful. And in doing it, we discovered that we developed quite a few new techniques and a different approach to it, because because there wasn't so much going on the web in those days. And so and the amazing thing is, it all involved split testing. So what Paris has told you so far is great. It shows what's possible. You can see how quite surprisingly small changes to copy make a big difference. And for the rest of this talk, I'm going to talk about how you can become a copywriter yourself. And the reason it sounds, saying the original title, which was how you can beat a professional copywriter, sounds maybe far-fetched, but what you have to remember is most people who have the word copywriter on their business card aren't copywriters by our definition of it. In our definition, anyone who if someone has never won a split test with their copy, then we would not call those people copywriters, because a split test is the way of measuring that your copy has actually beaten the existing version. And if someone calls himself a copywriter but can't show any evidence that they've won split tests, it's a bit like someone calling themselves a salesperson who can't provide you with any evidence that they've ever actually generated sales. And so what I'm going to show you is enough to make you surprisingly sophisticated at copywriting. So we wrote an article about what we had been doing, It went viral, and it was one of the fastest growing sites in the world on that week, according to Alexa. Google, the next day, out of the blue, contacted us and said, "What are your plans?" And they invited us to become one of the first consultants, one of the first authorized partners in the world for Google Website Optimizer, which was Google's split testing tool. So we didn't plan on creating a consultancy, and basically, yeah, that's how things led. And nowadays we carry out split tests and design pages for some of the world's most sophisticated companies like Apple and Google and Facebook and Sony, and now we've worked in almost whatever it is that you sell. We have worked in that industry. We've sold almost everything now. And the reassuring thing is that whatever it is you sell, the advice in this talk will be applicable and really, really effective. And on our site, I won't go into details, but we've got on our clients and results page, we've just got, I think it's 32 video testimonials of our consultants, of our clients, telling the story of how conversion rate optimization has like radically grown their business, often by more than double. So when you first find out about copywriting, what most people want to know is, what are the words that sell? And there's a book here, Words That Sell, which is a big list of words that are, that are useful for copywriters, a thesaurus. But that's not, the book's has its use, but that's not what copywriting is about. And if you buy the book More Words That Sell, that's not what it's about. It's phrases. No, it's not phrases that sell either. It's not tested sentences that sell. There are actually two skills to copywriting, and they're not really about the words. Skill one is about becoming able to sell the product face to face, and skill two is being able to take that knowledge and turn it into writing. So the rest of my talk is going to be mainly about these two steps. One is step one, which I'm talking about now, becoming able to sell the product face to face. That's the first thing you need to be able to do. And here's why. It's because your robot salesperson, which is what your website is, your robot salesperson will be no better than its creator. In other words, if you can't sell the product face to face, if you couldn't sell it to someone, in person, then you don't stand a chance of creating a page that will sell it, because you don't know all the things that you need to say in order to sell. So there's no way that you can create a page that does it automatically for you. And here's a great example. Whatever it is, every client that we work on, one of the things that we always do is find someone, usually within the client's organization, often someone in customer support, someone who can sell the product themselves. Now, this example, we were working on a page for an electrical device, and we went to a store where they sold them, and this girl was amazingly knowledgeable. She sold about 5 of them per week, and we said, well, what are the how would you improve the page? So we showed the client's page and we said, how would you improve this page? And she said, oh, tell me about that page. She said, when we started selling these electronic devices, we the first thing I used to do is our prospects, the visitors to the store, used to ask us questions and I used to look on the website for the answers, and the website doesn't contain the answers. And she then listed out about, I think it was 22 different things that customers ask and customers need to know before they buy, and none of which were on the actual client's website. And so can you see how the website didn't contain the information that a real person would need to sell these? And she knew what they were. And so she gave us, effectively what she gave us was a list of 22 common objections and the counter objections that she had come up with that answered their questions and allowed her to sell the product. So that was ready-made copywriting gold. It didn't come from a book of magic words. It's real, genuine things that a customer needs in order to take action. So that's the first step. The second part of learning to sell face-to-face is become the customer yourself. Again, whatever we sell, we insist that our consultants go and buy it themselves. We reimburse them, for it. So between us, we've bought a whole load of like unusual things, clients' products. But what we always do is start off on the web, research it. Don't just go to the client site, but also shop around like you would do in real life. Um, Record yourself with Camtasia, or if you're on a Mac, ScreenFlow, and so you have a record of. We often like to include our own faces on it, because you can even see your own emotions at the times that you're getting frustrated, and you can also zoom back through this, at a later date, and watch the movie to remind yourself of what different sites looked like and what the information was, and how it's a very quick way of being able to work your way through different funnels. If you have any questions, if you'd pick up the phone normally to call customer support, do that, and use Skype so you have a record of that as well. So it's really useful for you to become, because you need to become the customer, because you need to be able to understand the customer's views. And what better way than actually becoming a customer? And how crazy is it to think of selling something if you haven't been the customer yourself? And then actually, when you buy it, use the product. Here's a photo of my co-founder, Ben, and on a weekend where we were working for a company that sold sheds, and we needed to find. We asked in the company which of us most needed a shed, and Ben didn't need a shed, but I guess he was the person who was least reluctant to buy one and set one up. So he ordered it. He had it delivered. He assembled it, and in doing so, one thing that he discovered was that all of the parts of the shed that were delivered on the front lawn, he said that the panels were too large to fit through the house, which he had to, and it damaged the walls on the way through the house. So he reported back to the client. They actually redesigned their sheds, and so now all of their shed panels are small enough so that they'll fit through a normal house doorway. And if you think of the improvement in customer satisfaction and in net promoter score, that from making that what seems like quite an obscure change, it'll be huge. And all of these little things, as you're using the product, you learn different aspects that might have you were unaware of until you were actually the customer. The next thing you need to do is find out, on the page that you're improving, have an on-page survey asking questions. In particular, ask why. Here's one from one of our pages. It's from our Learning Zone page, where we ask, did you decide to download our PDFs? Please let us know why or why not. You can be brutally honest. We love feedback. So it almost feels like cheating, doesn't it? Where you can just ask. You're effectively saying, how can we improve this page, or why did why let us know why you won't take action. And with so many of the pages on our site and on our client site, we have these surveys. We don't run them forever. We run them only for the time it takes to gather the information we need. And then you can iteratively improve the page and keep, when you see an objection coming up several times, fix that objection. And this survey tool is called Qualaroo, Qualaroo. And we find it really useful for finding out specifically why customers aren't taking action, visitors aren't taking action. The next thing to consider is the mental shopping list. The mental shopping list, you need to have a list, and this is just a basic one. There'll be lots of more detailed ones for each product or each site that you're working on. But the mental shopping list is a list of all of the things that a prospect needs to think by the time they take action. So here, for example, they need to think, this site looks relevant and it'll satisfy my visitor intention. They need to think, I believe that this is the best site of its type, so I won't be considering the competitors, which include doing nothing and ordering offline. I can easily find what I'm looking for. I can understand which product is best for me because the site makes clear recommendations. I believe that this type of product is what I need. I believe that this particular product is what I need. I believe the claims that the site's making about the companies and about the products because they're supported with proof. All of my miscellaneous product-specific objections have been overcome, and you can write those all out. And I found the whole experience pleasurable, and I'd happily do it again. And what you'll find is that each site has a different bottlenecks. It has different questions that aren't being answered at the moment. So you need to create this list because you need to actually identify which stages, which parts, which aspects of the site the customers, the visitors are getting stuck on. Which of these questions aren't you answering at the moment? It's really important there. So you don't start writing until you, one, know everything about the product, two, until you've bought and used the product with your own money, three, till you can understand why people buy it, four, so you could sell it to yourself or your friends. Because don't forget, if you couldn't sell it to yourself, then you don't stand a chance of selling it to other people. Five, know all the objections and have great counter objections for them. And six, till you've gathered proof to support all of your claims. And I say there, your legal dossier. If you imagine that you're gathering proof, you're gathering like a legal dossier to prove that the product and the website is the best. That's a good way to think of it. It's not marketing, this idea that you can just come up with loads of marketing buzzwords and that it'll work. It doesn't. It's not what converts. Visitors are converted but on proof. So that's the preparation. And can you see when I said like you need to sell it face to face? We're not saying that you need to become like a sleazy salesperson. That's exactly not what it's about. It's about understanding all of the things that you'd need to say in order to persuade someone, all the things that the visitor needs to know before they can take action. And those things, all those facts exist somewhere out in the world, and you need to get out and learn them. So that's the first step of the two aspects of copywriting. The second one is writing it down. Now, one thing to consider here is that most people prefer one of the two steps. There aren't many people who are comfortable with both of them. People who love selling, people who love step one, are often not particularly shy away from writing. Similarly, people who enjoy writing often often are uncomfortable with all the selling part. And I think one of the secrets of becoming a great copywriter is whichever one of these two steps you're not comfortable with, push yourself out of your comfort zone, and if you can have the self-discipline to actually do whichever step you find least comfortable and to grow in that area, then you can become what's quite a rare breed. There really aren't enough good copywriters around. Here's a packet of ham that I bought from Tesco a few months ago, and if you look at there on the sales copy, pretty much the only sales copy on the whole packet is that just a suggestion, it says. And if you imagine it, if you went into a supermarket and it had a deli counter, and there was a person there who was serving up the ham, and you ordered some, and they gave you a packet of ham, then could you imagine the situation where imagine you said, "Oh, thank you very much," and you're about to walk away, and the person says, "Yeah, hang on, just a suggestion," and you say, "Yeah, what's that?" And they say, "Well, you could you could make a sandwich out of that." You'd say, "Yes, I know that. Is that all?" And they say, "Well, maybe you'd want to leave maybe you'd not want to unfold the ham properly." You say, or maybe add a bit of lettuce. But yeah, I knew that. It wouldn't happen, would it? It wouldn't. A real person would never say that in real life. They'd never stop you and say just a suggestion. But for some weird reason, the act of writing turns many a genius into a moron. There's, I think there's something to do with the way people are taught to write at school. There's a disconnect. So someone who'd never dream of saying just a suggestion when they were selling ham face to face would be really happy to write it on a packet and not to realize what a strange thing that is to say. And so part of, I'd say one of the big things about learning to be a good copywriter is to write like a human, is to write in the same way that you would actually say, to write in the same way that you'd actually speak to someone in real life. And it's hard because at school, a lot of how you're taught to write involves the opposite. It involves writing